Okay, this is chapter 1.4. This is about exponential equations, which we're going to find out real quick that exponential equations are geometric equations. All right, so the geometric series that we've been talking about are actually just another way of expressing an exponential equation. So here we go. The expression for this one is begin with a sheet of paper, fold it in half, and record the number of layers of paper after the fold in a table of the one shown. So basically, if I take a sheet of paper, and if I don't fold it at all, there's only one layer. But if I fold it in half, if I fold it once, I now have 2 layers of paper. If I fold it again, I have 4 layers of paper. If I fold it again, I have 8. If I fold it again, I have 16, 32, 64. If you fold paper 6 times and count the layers in between them, like this one right here, it's been folded twice, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. And you'll notice really quick that we can look at the differences. So these ones are going up by 1, so plus 1. Pardon me. And these ones are going up by a multiple of 2. Right? And the way you can show that if it's not so readily apparent, basically what you do is you take the previous one, so like 2 divided by 1. So 2 divided by 1 is 2, so times 2. 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 equals 2, so that one's a multiplier of 2. 8 divided by 4, well, that's also 2, so minus 2. So on and so forth. So I'm not saying you have to show the 16 divided by 8. But what I am showing you is if it's not obvious that it is a multiplier of 2, you can just go on down the list and say, oh, well, that's just times 2. That's just times 2. 64 divided by 32, well, that's equal another multiplier of 2. So whenever we have the same ratio on the right side, they're all being multiplied by the same thing, that is an exponential function. We call it exponential. exponential. And the reason it's called an exponential is simply because x is an exponent. Okay? And here's how we write it. We write it like this. It is y equals, they say a b to the x. That's the basic form of it. It is a b to the x. Just to explain a little bit what's going on with that, a is your starting point. A is your start. Okay? So in this case, starting point, when x is 0, y is 1. So the a value for this one would be 1. B is your ratio. Ratio. Okay? Your ratio is whatever you are multiplying by over here. So, or dividing by. So your ratio for this one, your b value, equals 2. So the way we'd write this equation would be y equals, we don't have to write 1 because 1 times anything is just 1. Doesn't change anything, I mean. It would be 2 to the x. That would be the equation for this one right here. Okay? All right. Give me just a second. Okay, for number 11, it says fold the paper in half and record the area of the region showing in the table below. If necessary, round to the nearest tenth of a square inch. So let's just, we're not going to measure it. Let's just say a sheet of paper is 100. No, let's not do 100. Let's do, let's say it is, what is that, 128, 256. 512. Let's say it's 512 square inches. Okay? I know that seems like a lot. That's way too big for a sheet of paper, but just the math comes out easy this way. Okay? So if I were to fold that in half, well, that means we're cutting the area in half. 512 divided by 2 is 256. So square inches. All right. Again, if we fold it in half again, the size of the actual individual squares gets cut in half. Well, 256 divided by 12 is 128. If we fold it in half again, we get 64 square inches. If we fold it in half again, that's 32 square inches. Fold that in half again, that's 16 square inches. Then 8 square inches. Okay. Each one is cut in half by 2. So it's like dividing by 2. And if you were to, if it wasn't, again, if it wasn't readily apparent, we could simply go, well, that's 256 divided by, what did I just do? I did 2.5. 256 divided by 512. And you throw that in your calculator, you're going to get 0.5, which is like dividing by 2, or 1/2. So basically what you're doing is you're multiplying by a half. Same thing here. What is it? 128? 128 divided by 256. That's a multiplier of 1/2. Shove that in your calculator. 64 divided by 128. Again, we're going to get times 1/2. And I'm going to fill out the rest real quick. There we go. And you realize that if you haven't already seen it already, these are all the same ratio. So if we have the same ratio, basically multiplying by the same thing, we know it's exponential. So here we go. Exponential, y equals a b to the x. I don't know why I tried to write a 0 there. A is your start. So in this case it's 512. B is your ratio. So in this case it is 0.5, or I'm going to write 1/2 just because I'd rather do with a fraction, but 0.5 is fine too. So the way we write it is y equals 512 times 1/2 to the x. That would be the equation for this one. All right, there we go.